All right. Good, very early morning, all. My apologies for having taken so long to continue, follow up on the last video and continue our course here. I've run into some pretty sharp snags recently, just thereafter having made the video, in fact, that have left me in somewhat of a predicament, most especially where it concerns me no longer having active electricity or internet access. But I assure you, as can well be seen by receiving this video or watching this video, I'll manage to take care of it. Just might take me some time, but for the most part, I will find alternative avenues of getting the job done. Rest assured, uh, I have every intention of kicking this thing's ass in the most earnest. In any case, what follows is perhaps one of my very most favored theories of all time by any standard, let alone religion, which, in case I haven't managed to clearly enough deliver the message here, um, I have a bit of an obsession with theology. And it's not, obviously I'm a spiritual person. If any of you know me from the initiative, there's a good chance I kind of lose track of the fact that this is my own channel and that I'm kind of doing my own work here. So, having interacted or begun interacting with people in various other social media outlets, there's a very good chance that a lot of the people that watch this channel, tune into this channel, uh, you know, hopefully actual fans of the channel that I might have or gain at some point, could very likely not be involved with the initiative at all and really have no idea what it even is. So, if you know me from the initiative, I'm a sort of a spiritual person. You could say I hold at least metaphysics, if not spirituality, in a very high regard. It it changed my life. I I didn't know who I was or what I was capable of becoming until I met my spotter and she introduced me to our tradition and, for all intents and purposes, offered me a legitimate avenue by which to make use of some of the innate skills and talents that I had built in already. Not to mention make sense of a lot of the crazier facets of my being. When I was, just to cut off for a second, when I was in, I think, first grade or second grade, I'd played a video game called ActRaiser that was essentially, it was like a simulation god game where you played as, you kind of played as an angel, but I get the idea that you were the god character controlling the angel. The angel was just kind of the representation of your cursor, really. But what you did was you essentially built towns and then cities and eventually an entire world, just as you would with any other kind of simulation, sim building game like Civilization or The Sims, or, Sim City was one back then that we had. I don't know if that's still around, but that was kind of the start of it all. But what happens was you would usually, most often from what I can remember, you would build a town and then you would hit certain ordeals in the town that had to do with things you needed to build, things that the people required, just general necessity concerns. And once you overcame these puzzle problems, really, you would be able to build a larger city and connect it with the rest of the world that you were building. And once that happened, it would be required of you to open up a path between one city and the next, or one city and the last, rather. At what point you would actually have to go down into the place you've built in this god character form, where you would usually be toting something like a broadsword or a battle axe, and you just generally be this kind of Viking badass character like one of the gods of old, and you would have to defeat demons and fight some kind of a boss in order to clear the path and make way, essentially save the town or the city from whatever evils, because usually the purpose of the story or the the dialogue behind the story would be something to the effect of, there's a certain sort of a demon, usually corresponding with one of the deadly sins that would be tormenting this town in some way. The city would be plagued by something having to do with a certain sort of demon character, and eventually you'd be charged with the task of coming down in earthly form as this Viking god sort of character, and essentially just fucking killing everything and ridding the town of whatever evils were presented. And there was a lot of cool aspects to it that were not available in other games, such as there was a lot of weather orientation aspects where you had to particularly be controlling the weather, and you would make decisions rather than having to provide necessities to grow crops and such. You would actually have to decide whether the crops would be allowed to grow, because in some cases it was better to starve your people, I guess, or whatever the case may be. There were various puzzles that needed to be solved along those lines, which were pretty much just choice. You were God in the game, so you could choose for anything to happen. It wasn't really a matter of you having to accomplish much, except of course for killing these demons. So just to talk about that was one of the things that piqued my interest early on in life. But the point of the story is that at one point I got into a pseudo theosophical conversation with somebody else, a classmate, and he told me something along the lines of his spirituality, which of course was Christianity, which was Judeo-Christian faith, and he's trying to preach the Bible to me essentially, which I was raised by Jehovah's Witnesses, so I mean I know the Bible. I knew the Bible, and I do apologize if my last video came off crass or fucking lazy or even stupid. It I didn't intend for it to come off as being stupid, but I did intend for it to come off as being somewhat crass and lazy, because honestly, I think in this day and age, for so many of us to still be holding on to this particular ideology, most especially considering that it's essentially the most immature of religions. It hasn't been around for as long as the others, and I mean it got its day in the sun. It got its 15 minutes. It had its chance to work wonders, and it failed. So I mean, really in this day and age we should be more prepared to move on, and in fact it's a necessity that we are, because at this particular point in our overall evolution, we really do not have time anymore to be dicking around with this. This is one of the key factors that we really need to be dealing with immediately. I understand that a lot of people have a lot of faith invested in this, a lot of value invested in this religion, and have been raised on it, have friends and family in it. I understand that a lot of people have every reason to fight for this religion and want to hold on to it. And I'm really sorry that it has to be the case, but it in fact is the case that you're going to have to let that go. We can't afford it. I mean, it's bottom line, you're going to have to make the decision as to whether you would rather we all live, survive, prosper, and move on to a new area of interest insofar as our actual spirituality and evolution is concerned, or just kind of maintain this fraudulent ideology for as long as you can until we are all killed because of it. Because that is what's going to happen. I guarantee you. We need to we have to find a measure by which to compromise here, at least, and make an effort to at least work some sense into it, which is what we're doing here. But anyways, as I said, I was raised a Jehovah's Witness, so I understood the Bible, and I do understand the Bible. And this kid in my class is telling me about the Bible, and I got tired of it after a minute because I mean, I was trying to tell him, I know that, but I was raised Jehovah's Witness. He was raised, I think, Catholic or Protestant or whatever, something other than mainstream Christianity, but along those lines. And I guess he didn't really believe me because, obviously anybody who's involved in that way is going to look down on the Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm sorry for anybody who is a Jehovah's Witness out there. I, in fact, have a few very good friends who I have the highest respect for who are actually Jehovah's Witnesses by decision. But it's it's not me personally talking down to them in this particular instance. It just is the fact of the matter that most people who are not involved with it are going to have a tendency to look down on it because it is just very obviously an extremely cult influenced, if not just flat out cult, uh, religious religious doctrine. It's pretty much just taking a system of faith that was stolen initially from our actual traditions and heritage and just stealing it one step further and making sure to alter it in such a way as to dispatch any connection to the previous understanding, but still hold all the same values and concepts, except, of course, for where you essentially the Jehovah's Witnesses issue a accessory commandment suggesting that you are not allowed to question at all, and that if you even so much as speak to a former member or seek guidance or information knowledge outside of the particular watchtower enterprises, then you are blasphemous or heretical in some way. It's pretty much it's a cult. I mean, I can't. I'm sorry. I don't want to be mean about it. I'm not trying to come down on anybody or make anybody feel bad, but the Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult, and I was with them for a while. So don't think I'm fucking you know don't think I haven't made up my mind properly here. I was raised by them, and they were great people. They were really good to me. They taught me a whole hell of a lot. And in fact, they built, for the most part, the interest that would later become my primary obsession in life. My favorite subject, and just what I love the most and have the most interest in. But that's the case in point. They are cult. In any case, this dude obviously he didn't think too well of Jehovah's Witnesses, so he's making sure he teaches me everything he can about the Bible. And at one point, I got sick of it, and I actually told him, you know what, my God, my personal God, is the sort of God that comes down off of his heavenly throne when he's needed, pulls out a motherfucking battle axe, and kicks some serious ass where it's required. My God steps up to plate and deals with business as is needed. My God does not hide on some throne and judge everybody else for failing where it has suggested they should. Of course, he immediately told the teacher, and she threw a hissy fit and just had like a field day. And I think that actually is what wound up getting me prescribed on certain medications for like ADHD and such, which led to, fully my entire childhood being lost entirely up until very recently. So I suppose that was kind of a mistake, but you know what? I still feel accomplished by it. I think it was the right thing to say, the right thing to do. I think it was the correct value to try and get across because the God that I do, in fact, believe in is, in fact, the sort of a God that does take care of its business as needed. And it does it through every single one of us, every day. Doesn't matter what faith you are, doesn't matter what you believe in, doesn't matter what you preach or practice. Somehow, this God, this living world, it's the real deal. And no matter what, one way or another, it gets through to you and through you. It uses every piece in play to make a difference as often as is possible. And really, the only thing that can stand against this actual God's influence upon the world is people who practice ignorance deliberately. people who actively decide to disregard, what the world shows them and teaches them firsthand, people who deliberately discard their experience for the sake of maintaining scriptural teachings. And that's, as I said, that's a no-no. We can no longer do that. I understand it was fun and games for a while, but it's no longer allowed. Period. I'm gonna go ahead and make that assessment of my own accord. Perhaps a lot of people don't see me as being qualified to issue commands upon the world, but I assure you, I actually am. I've had a lot of practice at this, and so far I've done a hell of a job. But whatever the case may be, don't take my word for it. Go out and experience on your own, and then follow through to do not discard the experience if it disagrees with your current understanding. That would be the goal here, the objective that we want to get across, and generally the idea that we want to exchange here is, when you experience something in the real world, in reality, that disagrees with what you've believed for so long, not only are you allowed to, but you are in fact encouraged to alter your beliefs. That would be the intelligent thing to do. In fact, that would be the very definition of intelligence. Anything else is the definition of stupidity, cognitive dissonance, ignorance, the lack of willingness and ability to learn. So, that said, obviously, as I was saying, I'm kind of a spiritual person. Spirituality has always taken a top interest for me since I started my training, and even before then, because I had experiences with such things as projection and dream works, and for the most part, kind of synchronicities, although I had no idea what they were and didn't really know how to engage them. I had experienced them a great deal, and we all had, and we had been into this sort of thing. Like, we used to go to haunted houses in the neighborhood when we were kids. Rozzy and Boob and I used to go to haunted houses, and Gabby was Rozzy's sister. I think she was my first false wife. She's the first girl I kissed anyway, but we used to go to presumed haunted houses in the neighborhood, and then we'd investigate essentially, and even if we didn't find anything, we'd find a way to write little ghost stories about the place, kind of reports about it. We were as existential investigators even then. And so spirituality in general, and metaphysics, and like otherworldly type stuff, ghosts and projection and dreams, and all that cool kind of stuff, that wacky fun stuff, and especially aliens, always piqued my interest. So, generally speaking, I'm a sort of a spiritual type person, but theology and religion, that's a different ballpark altogether for me. I'm so in love with the idea of investigating these so-called mythologies, and investigating the reality of them, attempting to find a truth, because of course, as I just got finished saying, the God that I believe in, it's putting the truth out there in everything. If you can see the values in play, and you can read the reality of a situation, if you can see the messages that are delivered in everything, you'll find that this God is always present, always active. It's always putting the truth even in the lies, like point blank right in your face. In all the lies that other religions tell you, this God is speaking its truth to you in some way or another. And that's pretty much what we're going to be investigating here. But first, we're going to go over the differing theories, which, as I said, this particular theory, topic of this video, has got to be one of my favorite topics, period, of all time, let alone my most beloved religious concerns. And it's the idea, pretty much, that we can have all kinds of ideas, especially in the spiritual circuit, metaphysical circuit, as to how things can have metaphorical meanings, and things can have hidden truths in them, and things can be representative in some form or another of differing truths, or realities, and there really is always kind of a metaphor hidden in just about everything. But it's even more interesting if you can actually consider it, these mythologies, these legends, to have been actual real life events that did in fact transpire and were not committed by some kind of, supernatural creatures from another realm or dimension or what have you, some far-fetched understanding of that nature, but actual people that, were alive and real and for the most part entirely interactive with the actual, physical, biological nature of the world, as is believed by many ancient astronaut theorists. This one is going to speak to the idea that it's going to drop. Firstly, disclaimer: it's going to drop into the Hindu Rig Vedas and other such testimonies, particularly Native American stories, and really any native peoples of any area are going to have the same sort of a story, or at least something similar. It's going to fall into Egypt. It's going to fall into Sumeria. It's going to fall into the Mayans. Um, it's it's a very standardized. Really, it's fucking hot. It's really kind of a standardized belief structure. This that um, amongst the elder tribes and the elder peoples that exist in our world, most of them are going to tell you if you ask them, how, like they have a lot of cool workings, like the Egyptians built the fucking pyramids, and anybody who claims to have any idea as to how they could have actually done that in the manner that we'd like to think they might have is lying, or just actually stupid enough to buy that shit. No, we have no idea how they built those, and the fact as it stands is that there had to be some sort of an intervention. At the very least, there's some technology in play that we are heretofore unaware of. But they're all going to tell you that these feats that they've accomplished are not actually their own. That they didn't. I mean, you'd think that if they had done such amazing, miraculous things, and at the very least, they would want to take, at least by extension, some level of credit for it, unless they were actually devoted to telling you the real truth, which is what they will tell you is that they had no hand in it. It's not their creations, it's not their works, that everything that they know and everything that they've accomplished earlier in their civilizations were in fact performed by or on behalf of what they call star people or people from the sky, essentially aliens. Somebody came here from on high. And by on high, I mean somebody came fucking down here from the sky, which means they came from outer space. There ain't no, in case you're unaware, I mean, some of us who are more deeply involved with Christianity and such might be a little confused on the matter, but if you take a look around, you're going to find that there is actually not anybody living up on the clouds. It's highly unlikely for that to have ever been the case, largely because it's entirely impossible. There's never been anybody living on clouds. Nobody lives on clouds now. Just just to be certain we get it straight, we have reasons to believe there may be such things as angels or angelic figures, that there actually are that there actually is some truth to the idea, concept, and stories of angels, but they are not mythical creatures hanging out on clouds with harps and wings. They are actual, real, living creatures. And obviously, unless they're exceptionally well hidden, we have no idea where they are now. It doesn't seem to be the case that they're around still, but we have every reason to believe that they actually were here at some point and that they are real, living, flesh and blood creatures. But just to be clear, they aren't living on the clouds. Nobody's living on the clouds, let alone God. If God like were an actual living character, I mean, obviously God is a living character, but if God were like a sort of, I guess, human type person, or a humanoid creature, which did. One of the points I hope we get across throughout this course is that the very simple fact of the matter, in whatever regard, is that God is not human. So you can really kind of go ahead and judge on a whim, really, on your own, without any help, um, where the lies and the truth and the line between the two are drawn by just viewing it from the perspective of, if it's teaching that God is human or behaves like a human, thinks like a human, looks like a human, acts like a human, if God is punishing people for not following his rules, and he's just terribly jealous of anybody who defers worship from him, and can't really get over this kind of egotism problem he has, that's a that's a uniquely human characteristic. That is a fraud. So that's what we're going to get into a little bit in this video. I think we're going to have to chop this in two, actually, because I went on too long in the beginning. So we'll follow up afterwards. In any case, uh, what we're getting at here with this one is aliens, which any ancient civilization, just about any ancient civilization, is going to go ahead and tell you matter of factly that at some point they were acquainted with people that came from elsewhere, and they gave them all kinds of dramatic changes in knowledge, and they showed them amazing technologies. We have so many stories in our history and in the history of races, most especially the Chinese races, the Far Eastern religions, that tell of people who came from the sky in various machineries and had, things that are uncannily similar to the kind of technologies that we've just started producing recently. Like the emperor in China, the first emperor of China, apparently had a smartphone. They call it a magic mirror, but it pretty much, from what they describe, it's a smartphone. It's the same fucking thing, exactly. And I don't know, maybe they had smartphones early, these aliens, but and obviously they would have had them for a long, long time. Their technology is supposed to be super advanced, and thousands and thousands of years ahead of us. But I guess it was kind of a dick move on his part, because apparently he was the only one who was allowed to carry one. Like he must have issued an order to the rest of them, like, you can't show off these smartphones. We don't want the people knowing what they are and that they're common. Just my smartphone, so that it appears to be exceptionally unique and of a mythical proportion. I think that was pretty much it. This emperor carried around a smartphone. He just didn't let any of his people carry him around either, because he wanted his to seem exceptionally special. Where in fact it was just like a fucking older model Samsung or something. Anyways, I guess that could be a sort of a homework assignment for the moment, in the case that I'm unable to upload the continuation of this quickly enough. Look into Native American mythologies, look into Egypt, look into the Hindu Rig Vedas. Just generally take a look around and see if you don't find the same recurring theme popping up all over the place, that we at some point were visited by people from another world, another place, and they didn't pop up from out of nowhere on a magic cloud. They came here in a physical, solid vehicle, that it had some sort of a technology in play. In fact, they all go out of their way to make an attempt at describing this technology as best they can. In most cases, they fall short, using euphemisms, analogies, and metaphors to describe it from the primitive perspectives they had at the time, but they are most certainly describing technologies, machinery. In any case, uh, that's something, I guess, ultimately you're going to want to have that under your belt. You're going to want to know about that for the duration of the course, if not at least for this video. So I guess this first part of the video would be me issuing that homework assignment. Most especially look into the Rig Vedas. That's my favorite of all of them, of any religious considerations. The Hindu Rig Vedas is my all-time favorite, and if you look into it, you check it out, you're gonna see why. It's badass. It's still, like, in this day and age, even, it's still one of the better sci-fi type stories that's ever been written, and it is fucking crazy. And the best part is that it corresponds with the others. They all correspond with each other. That's what we're gonna find here throughout this course, and throughout our investigation, is that there is in fact a connection linking all these things, that there is some solid reality to it, and it's very likely all of it. It's likely that it's all true. We just we've been misled insofar as we are perceiving the nature of the occurrence. What we need to be doing is just looking at the actuality of the occurrence and judging it based on our actual experience. We just it I just all I can say really is that look into things, experience, investigate, look around, learn, educate yourself, and for the love of God, do not take somebody else's word for it, ever. Where it comes to belief, where it comes to what you believe something is or what it means, what the actual, what the actual nature of the occurrence is, or what the actual. God, I always miss a word, man. I'm always missing a word. To be fair, I've been up for like 4 days now, and entirely flustered at having gotten screwed over for the bulk of that time. Not to mention, really, really busted my ass, working severely hard. So I'm really beat up now. I'm surprised I can even speak to you guys. But fact of the matter is that when I get this way, when I'm a few days sleep deprived, it seems I kind of get into this mode where I have exceptionally clear thinking and I'm capable of wording things in such a magnificent way that I couldn't avoid taking the chance at having this opportunity because I really do get into overtime mode where I'm just my brain is kicking the full amount of ass and then some for whatever reason when I'm in a certain level of sleep deprivation. In any case, I can't remember the word I was looking for, but pretty much where it comes to you judging something and what it is, what it means, it's gonna kill me, man. I can't think of the one word, and it was the best word too. It was the best word in this whole video. Damn it. Where it comes to you passing a judgment on what something actually is and what it means and what it stands for, what it represents, A, do not take someone else's word for it. Judge by your own experience, your own intelligence, and your own insight and intuition. And B, if somebody tries to tell you it's some kind of mystical, supernatural hoopla, just I'm gonna have to go ahead and ask you to take that with a grain of salt and keep it in the option bin for now. Put that on the back burner. Let's try to look at things as though there is a presentable, acceptable reality to it for the time being. We can get into the crazier, wackier concepts later on. For now, let's just deal with these solid theories. In any case, thank you for watching this. It was too long as it is, but we're gonna have more. This video continues, so tune back in as soon as I'm able to post. Go ahead and tune back in, and we'll get you all covered with the ancient aliens theory of modern day Christianity and other similar religions. In fact, all religions ultimately. In any case, thank you for watching. Kila Salai, Terve Uni Siari Namaste.